We have the best musicians in the world, but I think we've had more major artists out of Detroit than any city in the world.
From Detroit's University District, welcome to Your Daily Detroit, recorded on Thursday, April 25th, 2019. I'm Cheyenne Oserini. Today is a conversation with Howard Hertz, previewing the Detroit Music Awards that are happening this Friday. The annual event has been a linchpin of the Detroit music scene for years. Hertz is not only the president of the foundation that puts on the event, he's an entertainment lawyer with a roster of clients that's a who's who of Detroit music. Here's that conversation with Sven Gustafson.
Looking at the list of nominees for this year, it's really extensive. There are categories for everything from rap and jazz and blues to Americana. There's gospel, even classical. It's the 28th year of the Detroit Music Awards. How has the event evolved over time?
Well, in terms of genres, we've always tried to be inclusive. The history of Detroit music, goes back probably a century, but, certainly decades in terms of popular music, starting in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And there have been all different types of music that have emerged out of Detroit in all different genres. So we're not just focused on rock and roll, for example, or on blues. We really want to be all inclusive. And the Music Awards are the one night of the year where you find all the genres present in the house, talking to each other. You'll see, rappers talking to classical violinists. It's really a fun night.
Yeah, I bet. Has it grown in size over that time, I would imagine?
Well, it has grown, but it's been fairly steady. I mean, we get typically about 1,000 people from the Detroit music industry that come annually. Different people, of course, every year, but approximately 1,000 that come. And then the general public, it goes up and down year to year in terms of how many people attend. The thing we found is that most members of the general public don't realize that they're invited to come as well. We really think that they'll have a great time, and it's like the Grammys, where awards are given from the main stage, and then performances are in between the awards that are given.
How are the nominees chosen, and how does the award process work? Take us through that.
Well, it's basically a 3-step process. Again, similar to the Grammys. The first step is anyone really can submit someone either as an artist, as a songwriter, or a recording, but it can be submitted in the first stage by anyone just to get a list of what's been created in the past year, who's popular, who's well known, who's the best musician, whatever it is in different genres. And that's general public. Starting though with the second phase, it's only people in the music industry in what we call the Metro Detroit area, which goes from Toledo to Flint and from Ann Arbor to the Lakes, St. Clair Shores area. So it's a pretty broad area. And in the second phase, people look at that drop-down list and say, okay, this is who I would nominate. And then you're limited in terms of the numbers you can nominate. And then we add up, all the numbers of people who've been nominated, and the top 6 to 8, depending on which category, end up on the final ballot. And then the final ballot, again, is voted on only by people in the music industry. The one big increase that we have had this year, and a lot of it has to do with our social media boost, we've really been hitting social media, is we had more industry people vote this year, I think, than any other year.
You mentioned performances. Who can we look forward to at this year's event?
Let's see. For example, we have Mike Skill from the Romantics has put a group together, Mike Skill and Friends, and he'll be performing. I don't know if you're familiar with the RFD Boys out of Ann Arbor. They're celebrating 50 years of bluegrass and humor, and we're giving them an award, and they're also going to be performing tonight. John Sinclair, who I'm sure you know of.
Yep.
John is getting a Distinguished Achievement Award, and he's also going to be performing with the Blues Scholars. So John, in case some of your listeners don't know, John was the manager of the MC5 back in the Grandy Ballroom days. He was part of, or maybe originated, I'm not sure, the White Panther Party. And he infamously was imprisoned for 2 joints of marijuana. And in order to raise money to get him released, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, among others, agreed to perform at a benefit concert in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, sure. Famous event.
Soon after which he was released. So John is an icon and is a wonderful part of our community, and we want to honor him Friday night.
Right.
We're also, in performances, we're having a tribute to Aretha Franklin, and rather than her popular songs, we're having a gospel tribute. She was very well known for being a gospel singer, and that's her history, is, her father, a famous preacher. Carl Phillips and friends are going to do a gospel tribute to Aretha. And another tribute this is the 60th anniversary being kicked off of Motown. In this instance, rather than having a Motown artist perform, which we've had on many occasions, this year we're letting the Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit, which is, high school students that are highly motivated performers, have traveled and gone to the White House. I mean, they're, very well known. And a lot of what they do is Motown music. So they're going to do a tribute to Motown as one of the performances.
Sounds great.
And then last but not least, on the performance side, we have Frankie Ballard, who has been touring quite a bit with Bob Seger, opening for him, and who has quite a country following, and he's going to be performing as well. So we've got a great lineup. It's always a fun show.
Yeah. Howard, you work as an entertainment lawyer by day. You've represented lots of big name clients like Jack White, George Clinton, Insane Clown Posse, which I'd love to pick your brain on that at a different time. But, you've been really active in the music industry over your career. Given all the huge changes that have kind of roiled the industry and the way the traditional business model has been totally upended, does that change kind of like the meaning or importance at all of a show like the DMA?
Well, in a sense it does. I hadn't thought of it that way. But since Napster, really, when people believed that music not only could be free or was free or should be free, since that time, while streaming is now actually starting to pick up the income level from recorded music from its depths of about 4 or 5 years ago, it's turning out that live music and live performance is really where the artists can make their money. And it takes work, obviously. You have to, build up a fan base. You have to be able to go on tour. You have to be able to, prove yourself. Live performances are so important. And by having the Detroit Music Awards that includes live performances, that we get out and we see each other performing. When I say each other, I won't be performing. But when we see the different artists performing, it inspires, it helps the artists that are in the audience, that are receiving awards, recognize how important live performance is, and it helps expose Detroit musicians to the rest of the city and to the rest of the world. Our press releases really go out all over the world when we announce the winners, because there's always so many artists out of Detroit that are world renowned. We probably have the best musicians in the world, but I think we've had more major artists out of Detroit than any city in the world.
How would you sort of size up Detroit's music scene today in 2019? I mean, it's certainly not, the Motown era or, more recently like the garage rock era of the 2000s, where you had a lot of, really high profile, nationally known acts. But I mean, what's big out there now in terms of genres or individual acts, or do you think, is there anything under the radar that people should pay attention to?
Well, I mean, there always is. One of the acts that we have performing, she's a great performer, singer, songwriter named Shortly, and she'll be performing again on Friday night. But there are a lot of underground type artists that are being supported by managers and agents and, record labels to some extent, but, more and more people are willing to put themselves out there even without a label, create their own label or, put music out on their own. The hard part is the promotion. Someone's got to pay for promotion, because even if you have your music around the world on all of the streaming sites, if no one knows about it, you're not going to get any income from it. So you have to have some promotion. But I think that right now, don't forget, we have hip hop, where there's still a lot of great underground hip hop that's bubbling out of Detroit. We have obviously techno, which started in Detroit and is still continuing, and the Techno Festival is still one of the biggest live techno festivals in the world. People do come from around the world to see it. There are just, in every genre, there are people that are emerging. And, like you say, it doesn't have, right now, like, the White Stripes or Kid Rock just emerging or Eminem just emerging. But you'll see next year there'll be someone, and the year after, it's going to continue because the talent is here. Now, one of the things that most people don't even realize is a lot of our Detroit talent aren't necessarily, in their own quote unquote bands, but tour with some of the major acts in the world, or the music directors for some of the major acts touring the world. So we're here as a music city. We're here to stay, and we're going to keep letting people know about it.
All right. Well, Howard Hertz is president of the Detroit Music Awards Foundation. The 28th annual Detroit Music Awards takes place Friday, April 26th. Doors open at 7 p.m. at the Fillmore, Detroit. Tickets are still on sale, Ticketmaster, and at the Fillmore box office. Howard, thanks so much for chatting with us about the DMAs this year.
Sure. If I could just plug one more thing that you just mentioned about tickets. People don't realize we have tons of balcony tickets, and they're only $25. So even though you might not be on the floor with all the VIP tables and everyone, it's really fun to be in the house. There's a red carpet ahead of time. Just the people watching is great. And for $25, you can't beat it.
Thanks for listening to the Daily Detroit podcast. We may have a bonus episode in your feed this weekend. We're working on something neat. Jer was down at Michigan Central Station today getting sound. Also, I just wrapped up my City 5 list of things to do around town this weekend, so be sure to check that out up on dailydetroit.com. So for Jer, Sven, and Randy, thank you for listening. Also, thank you to our patrons. If you'd like to join them, visit patreon.com/dailydetroit. I'm Cheyenne Oserini. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.